We're live, yay! Sorry, we're 4 minutes late. So clearly lots of people were waiting because there's nobody watching the stream right now, which is awesome. Still have to watch what I say because some people may watch it later, including the people who employ me to do this, so that would be bad. Thanks for joining us this morning, this latest SilviaFindings live stream. This is our Wednesday morning live stream. Well, morning now when I'm doing it. 10:30 a.m. Pacific time is when we normally start. It was 10:33, 10:34 this morning. So, you know, it's been that kind of a day so far. We're going to continue on with our rings cataloging thing, and gosh, we're like almost 50 videos in to this catalog process, and we've done a lot. We've done all the pendants. We've almost done all the rings. I think we've got another maybe 2 weeks worth of rings to go, and then I don't know what we're going to do next. We'll think of something because there's so much. Sometimes you don't really realize how many products we have until you start doing something like this, and you know you can only do like 30 or something products a week, and it takes many weeks to get through them all, so like when we tell people, well, there's like something like 3,000 products in the catalog, and it's like, well, yeah, okay, whatever. No, there really is. I don't know if we're going to be doing every individual bead and everything. Maybe. I mean, it'd be fun. It'd be super fun. But we'll be here. At least that would keep me busy through next year, at least. So, and we'll all still be here, right? Now that people are all getting vaccinated. Yay! It's happening. Looks like humanity is going to survive this one. This one. Anyway, neither here nor there. Again, thank you for joining us. My name is Mark. I'll be your live stream presenter today of products. Just a little housekeeping again. If you share this video, you never know. We'll send you one of these beautiful polishing cloths that are amazing for removing cupric oxide from the outside of silver or gold items. It'll also work on copper and brass, although if you have naked copper jewelry lying around, it'll be hard to keep on top of the cupric oxide, because oxygen loves copper, and those things tarnish way quicker than sterling silver does. Which actually, we were having a discussion with somebody in the showroom the other day about why sterling silver tarnishes more than, say, fine silver, and it's the copper, right? Sterling silver 92.5% silver, 7.5% copper, and it's really the copper component in the sterling silver that the oxygen loves way more than the silver, so it tarnishes quicker. Fine silver, pure silver, will eventually oxidize, but it oxidizes way more slowly, which is why you can easily fuse with sterling silver or with fine silver, and you can't easily fuse with sterling silver, which is why when you're soldering with sterling silver, you need to put flux, because the flux creates a more attractive place for the oxygen to go to than the surface of the metal, the copper in the metal, right? So if you take I'm not going to get into the science of soldering here. Maybe that's a thing for another day. Or if somebody has a question about it, I have an answer. I have the answers. Or I have the answers that have worked for me over the years. Right. Shipping is continuing apace. It's up and down. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. It's kind of hard to put your finger on what's happening where. It seems like if there's a facility that has somebody gets exposed and they end up having like 10 or 20 people out of 60 people who work at the facility have to go quarantine for 10 days or something. That will impact how that particular facility works. I think there's an issue right now happening in one of the main facilities, sorting facilities in Mississauga, where all of our, cause we're on the West Coast, right? And when we ship stuff to Ontario, Quebec, the Maritimes, sorry for lumping you all in together. You know, we all know, we all love you individually, but for the purposes of this explanation, you'll all just be the Maritimes. Maritime provinces, Newfoundland, all that kind of stuff. It all goes through that sorting facility. It's like, right, they get binned up here, put in a truck, and they all go to that facility. Then they get undone and then dispersed over wherever else. And that one had the 19th of April is when that started. There was an outbreak, and then a bunch of people had to isolate and stuff, and so that was causing some problems, and is still causing problems. Getting stuff into the East. Getting stuff into Europe, it's still bad. Some countries are worse than others. I'm looking at you, France. But I'm sorry, I don't mean to pick on France, but they're such an easy target because they're such an awesome country, except for their postal service, which actually is on par with worst of the world with us. Although, to be fair, I'm not sure if there's any kind of postal service in like Mogadishu or the Sudan right now. Probably their postal service is worse than ours, I think. And it's first world problems, right? This is what I'm complaining about. Oh, God. Sometimes it's hard to get things in perspective and realize that there are, complaining about mail being a couple days late or a couple of weeks late is, not as big of an issue as, living through what they're going through in India right now. Oh my God, it just can't even fathom it. First world problems. My kids always used to bug me about that. I used to get so worked up over those kind of things, and it was like, Dad, first world problems, you still have a place to sleep. Anyway, why am I being a downer? Let's get on to the rigs. Have we done all the housekeeping? The same old things every week. If you order something during the live stream today, you get 50% off. Or you don't get 50% off. I didn't say that. You get, I'll give you 10% off and free shipping for regularly priced items. Say what? I know. It's like, I need some sleep. I need better, or I need better sleep. I need my sleep to be consistent. That's not your problem. That's my problem. I don't need to bring you my problems. You have enough of your own problems. Let's talk about something fun. Let's talk about jewelry, because everybody loves that. It's always a happy day when you're talking about that kind of stuff. So let me just switch this, the view of this camera around, and we will start with our first item. Why is that crooked? There we go. Oy, oy, oy. See, this is one of those things where somebody who's very process-oriented like me, the background fabric isn't parallel to the screen, so it's freaking me out. I'll get over it. I'll be okay. Our first item today, MTR 25. Sometimes it's important to understand and accept your own quirks. MTR 255 with a retail price of $70.89 and a wholesale price of $45.50. This is for a 16 by 21 millimeter oval cut stone or a cabochon, right? Got those gorgeous prongs that will work for any stone. Now, I didn't mention before, but we're almost done with the rings. We're doing men's rings right now, or what are ostensibly called men's rings, just because they're normally big chunkers like this. This is just a very cool, Art Deco sort of, style design on that, and that big shank, big gallery. And most of these rings, almost every one of these men's rings, the prongs, and I don't know why that is. Maybe it's sexist, but all the quote unquote women's rings, the prongs are made to be used as they are. And almost all the men's rings, I don't know if it's assumed that men will either be able to do this easier, or maybe they're less prone to want to do it themselves, and will bring it to a jeweler who will know what to do with prongs that are this big, right? So I don't know. Either way, almost all these men's rings have these giant prongs that are meant to be cut down and dressed and made beautifully, sort of thing. So every time you see these prongs, I mean, obviously, if you have a cut stone and the girdle is right up flush to that thing, and the table is a little bit higher than that, you don't need prongs that are this big. And if you push these over onto a stone that's pretty low, and if it's a super high dome cabochon or something, that's a different story. But if it's a a regular cut stone, faceted stone, with a shallow pavilion and everything, and it sits in here, the prongs that are this big, right, they'd end up going all the way like quarter of the way into the stone, which is way longer than you need them to be. So you just need to be able to cut these down, dress the ends, make the ends beautiful. And I, again, always like to grind a little bit on the inside edge of these. Now, these prongs, I mean, they look round from the outside, but they're not. They're sort of like maybe like a profile of a bread, a little roll, crescent roll, not a crescent roll, but like a little dinner roll, right? How it's sort of squat, rounded, flat on the inside a little bit, rounded on the outside. It's not really flat on the inside, it's just not round all the way around. Not describing the shape well. Anyway, I like to grind the inside a little bit to make it a little bit flat. If I can tell where the girdle of the stone is going to fit, I'll mark that off and put little notches on the inside with a heart burr, which I can explain another time if you like. Or just, you can even use needle files to file little notches in there, so that when you push this over, they kink right where the girdle is. Anyway, our next item, MTR 051, with a retail price of $34.53 and a wholesale price of $25.33. This is for a 10 by 12 millimeter oval. This is for a cabochon, right? Obviously, yeah, I wouldn't put a cut stone in there, especially not if the pavilion extended anywhere past the bottom of that thing. That would definitely extend into the finger space. So a cabochon, now ostensibly, hopefully it's a tall one, right? Because these elements, even though they look like they're prongs, you probably couldn't easily bend them just because of the angle. I don't know if you can see that, right? So it's perfectly flat on the inside, and then tapered out or flared out towards the side on the inside. So if you're trying to push this over this way, it's awfully thick, and it just gets thicker at the base, and there's not a lot of material to be able to move. So these are not these are more decorative accents than actual physical prongs. You'd have to glue that cabochon in there, right? Again, nice big open shoulders. Love those. MTR 250 with a retail price of $82.16 and a wholesale price of $52.72. This is for a 14 by 17 millimeter oval. Cut stone, obviously. Look at that seat with that bevel, right? That's made for a cut stone. Very interesting checkerboard elements. Although, these, maybe it looks like the original one, if it was carved out of wax first. They do this thing where you just draw lines, and it makes a checkerboard effect, and then you run some heat across it, and it makes them a little bit domed. It's a very cool effect. And if you're good, you can make them look awesome. I just love that, ripple effect in the top, and how that kind of sets off the stone beautifully. MTR 257 with a retail price of $77.83 and a wholesale price of $49.94. This is for a 15 by 20 millimeter oval cabochon or a cut stone. You can put either in here. Again, you know, you'd probably have to dress the prongs down to whatever size you need. And technically, they say, when you're learning in jewelry school, they tell you that the prongs don't need to extend more than 10% of the width of the crown. I mean, 10% is a little bit small for me. I find that I get a little bit nervous if it's that small, or I guess people do. I don't really. I understand that it's secure. You know, so I guess if it's like 50%, it's okay. It doesn't really occlude the stone at all, but it doesn't need to go all the way past the girdle onto the or past the crown onto the table. Right? I say MTR 229 with a retail price of $57.36 and a wholesale price of $38.38. This for 15 by 17 millimeter oval. Nice, simple little triangles on the shoulders there. Again, this cabochon is ideal for this. The prongs are the cabochon type where they're rounded on the outside, flat on the inside, right? So, but you could definitely use a cut stone in there as well, even though the gallery is not very deep, and you know, so if it's a really high pavilion, you might be careful that the pavilion doesn't extend into the finger space. MTR 284 with a retail price of $66.74 and a wholesale price of $42.82. This is another 15 by 20 millimeter oval, and I just love this faux filigree. It's not really filigree, I guess it's kind of pierced sawn design there, right? Love that. Very cool. Again, you know, the prongs would have to be dressed, but that's just a classic ring. That's a gorgeous one. This one, MTR 128 with a retail price of $42.26 and a wholesale price of $32.85. It's for a 7 by 9 millimeter oval, and this obviously is for a cabochon, right? That you would have to glue down into that thing, or I guess you could fill it with epoxy resin. You knew that was coming at some point. Love these kind of floral accents on the shoulder, right? They're antiqued, so it gives you that I don't know, antique look. Just a gorgeous ring. Whoops. Sorry, there's dead air. MTR 171, retail price of $36.61 and a wholesale price of $27.57. This is for 18 millimeter round. Now, obviously, this cabochon would be ideal for this, but you could also definitely put a cut stone in there. It would depend on the angle of the pavilion, right? If you can get the girdle in somewhere into those notches, right, and then the pavilion into that circle, just looking at it, man, it seems doubtful. But probably if it's a low dome cab, which is why you have these dots here to glue your stone in there, that's ideal. And you know, because there's the two prongs on one side and the one on the other, you can maybe lift this up a little bit, get your cab to go in this side first, and then shift it down and glue that in there, and then pull those prongs over onto the stone. Now, I mean, obviously, this is ostensibly made so that you can glue your cab in there, but if... no, never mind. I was going to say it'll probably be secure enough just with the prongs, but with just having the one prong in the side, I think if you knock your cab hard enough in, you know, one direction this way, it might be able to slip out of that thing. So glue, definitely glue, even though as we as we used to say in jewelry school, Glue is a 4-letter word. MTR 160 with a retail price of $43.69 and a wholesale price of $33.06 is for a 16 by 20 millimeter oval. Again, another one for a cab that's meant to be glued in. Depending on the shape of the pavilion, again, if you can clear this seat, you might be able to put a faceted stone in there, even though it might look weird if you can see through to those little dots under the thing. But it's made for a cabochon that would have to be glued in there. You could probably push these tabs over onto the stone. They're not super thick, but they're thick enough that it would, I mean, you'd have to know what you're doing to do it, right? And be careful if you're holding this in a ring clamp, right? Because these split shank rings, if you're holding it into a ring clamp right up here and you're holding it firmly enough in the ring clamp that you can get these things to push down, you're going to end up pushing these things together and warping your ring. So make sure you hold your ring clamp pinched only as far as the tip of that split. Right. If that makes sense, I think that makes sense. And if it doesn't make sense, just ask me, email, or leave a question here in the chat. MTR 047 with a retail price of $45.20 and a wholesale price of $33.78. This is for a 12 by 14 millimeter cushion cut, I guess. Cabochon. It's for a cabochon. Don't panic that the cutaway section here is not even, right, with the frame. I promise the frame is straight. This just cutaway is just to allow some light. Some cabs need to like to have light from behind it, although, you know, once it's actually on your finger, you know, it doesn't matter that it's cutaway because no light will pass through. But just when you're looking at it, sold for cushion cut. Awesome. Is that like this ring? Joe, good news. Cushion cuts are good. They give you a little bit more leeway setting sometimes if you're using prongs. I could talk about why that's true. MTR 226 with a retail price of $64.41 and a wholesale price of $43.09. This is for a 12 by 14 millimeter oval cabochon. I mean, this is designed for a cab. You can tell a couple of reasons. The seat is so wide and the prongs, right, flat on the inside, domed on the outside. Don't mind that they're all bent up. This is because, you know, again, they travel with us to shows and they're in trays sticking up like this, and when we stack the trays one on top of the other, they get sometimes bent. I promise if you order these, the prongs will be beautiful. Right, the gallery is not so deep, so if you manage to get a cut stone to fit in there, you just be careful that the pavilion doesn't extend down into the finger space. But this is just very simple, classic, nice wide shoulders, right, with a little taper on the inside. That's that. Our next item, MTR 268 with a retail price of $91.23 and a wholesale price of $58.85. This is for a 17 by 20 millimeter oval cabochon or cut stone. Again, with this wide pavilion or this wide seat, it would have to be, you know, just have to be careful of the shape of the pavilion. Because, you know, if it's a really wide pavilion or really deep pavilion, then sometimes the stone ends up sitting way high in the thing. So, I mean, you could always file this open a little bit if you need the stone to sit further down. Just be careful you don't allow enough room for the culet to extend down into the finger space, because then it would scrape you and make you cranky, which is bad. Or you could just put a cab in there and not worry about it, right? Lovely that faux millgrain texture, dots on the side, and that kind of, I don't know, Art Deco sort of look. Very cool. Here's one that I just love these. And we have a couple of these in the smaller ones that we've already seen. MTR 151 with a retail price of $39.38 and a wholesale price of $29.31. This is for a 15 by 21 millimeter oval. And I just love how this, so it's the little flowers, right? Around the frame coming up there. And, you know, once you get your stone down onto the seat here and there, these you can push down over onto the cab to hold it in place. And it looks gorgeous. So obviously you wouldn't want to put it on a cab that you wanted to present the whole cab. You know, if it's a cab that's a single color, maybe, or it's kind of boring, or maybe it has some weird blemishes on the side, right? That can be covered by these little flowers. Very cool thing. MTR 163 with a retail price of $39.30 and a wholesale price of $29.23. This is for a 20 millimeter round, and this is just a regular old classic shoulder, big wide shoulder, right? Nice and smooth. That bezel is about 1 millimeter deep, so whatever you're putting in there, you're going to have to glue it in there. Even like the super low dome cab, I don't think you'd be able to push these bezel wall over onto that. Although whatever you put in there, you know, I mean, you might try pushing that right up against the stone just so there are no gaps. But very simple, very classic. Oh, I haven't used the word elegant yet today. I'll do it on this one. MTR 282 with a retail price of $62.0807 and a wholesale price of $39.84. This is for a 16 by 20 millimeter oval cabochon or cut stone. Again, that open gallery section with the little floral elements. I don't know. I love that open weave kind of work. Very simple seat. Again, you can put a cabochon or a cut stone in there depending on the shape of your pavilion or the dome of your cab. These and again, you know, these prongs are probably not going to be used the way they are right now. These are probably too big. You'll have to cut them down, measure them, And again, I know I keep saying this, but I promise I'll do a video on how to dress the ends of your prongs and how to figure out how to cut them down and all that stuff. MTR 252 with a retail price of $78.60 and a wholesale price of $50.44. This is for a 17 by 22 millimeter oval. Again, just real simple. Again, almost sort of Art Deco, you know, shoulders with that crosshatch patterns on the sides. Very elegant, but not as elegant as this one. Oops. MTR 263 with a retail price of $83.01 and a wholesale price of $53.26. This is for a 16 millimeter round. Cut stone would look gorgeous in here. I just love this floral open weave look right there, or I guess that's kind of faux pierced and sawn look on the shoulders. Pretty deep gallery, so gosh, I can't imagine any cut stone I've ever seen that wouldn't be able to work in this thing, right? And it's just a classic, very killer, very gorgeous, elegant. Can't go wrong. MTR 258 with a retail price of $91.95 and a wholesale price of $59.01. This is for a 20 by 27 millimeter oval cabochon or cut stone, maybe, probably. You could probably get a cut stone in there easily. That's plenty deep of a pavilion. Very cute, sort of like a split shank kind of thing with a little curlicue heart in the center of the shoulder. Kind of a simple one, kind of a, I don't know. I love it. Gorgeous. But not very manly, is it? I guess with the little hearts Is that a thing? Is manly even a thing anymore? MTR 278 with a retail price of $55.08 and a wholesale price of $35.34. This is for a 16 by 20 millimeter oval, and I love these cascading ripples, waves, whatever you want to call them, right? Semicircles. It's just a very cool effect. Right? Up the shoulders, big wide open shoulders. Nice, big, beautiful seat. You can put whatever you want in there. I mean, as long as it fit, right? So it's got to be 16 by 20. But it could be a cab, could be a cut stone, whatever you like. These giant rings, I love them. MTR 246 with a retail price of $81.39 and a wholesale price of $52.22. This is for 18 by 23 millimeter oval, and I just, oh God, this is killer. Very cool kind of scroll work, right? Very, I don't know, fauna inspired thing with all the texture on the inside of those, right? Yeah, very cool, very lovely. MTR 26. Oh, on this, you know, if you do any, oh, whoops, I've gone ahead. I meant to go back. If you do any of your own wax carving, right? Texture like this is like super easy, right? You just take a ballpoint pen and you just, you know, kind of doink, 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 doink. You just keep jabbing it into there over and over to make that texture on down on the inside, right? People get intimidated by that kind of, you know, weird textures and stuff, but there's always an easy way to do it. MTR 266 with a retail price of $99.66 and a wholesale price of $63.95. This is for a 17 by 20 millimeter oval cabochon or cut stone. Very blocky, right? Very, you know, I love that kind of like a square peg in a round hole kind of feel to it. How it's not really Art Deco, but it's just, I don't know, very cool. I love that cross hatch effect. Our next item, MTR 248 with a retail price of $82.76 and a wholesale price of $53.10. This is for 18 by 20 millimeter oval cabochon or cut stone. And I've got the, you know, I keep seeing this design element, and I know there's a name for it, but I can never remember it. I have looked it up. Golly, I'll find it. I'll remember it. Anyway, I just love these cool effect, right? So it's the indentations are like a flower, right? But the intersections of the two things make it look like it's a silver with a star, or a circle with a star on the inside. It's just a very cool effect. Sort of MC Escher-esque, how one pattern sort of dissolves into another pattern. Very cool. And, you know, with those scallops all the way up to the very simple seat for a cab or a cut stone. Again, you'd have to dress the prongs to make them the right size, length, etc. MTR 245 with a retail price of $93.70 and a wholesale price of $60.13. This is for a 19 by 23 millimeter oval. Don't let anybody tell you that we don't have these weird sizes of ovals. Some of these, I think they're more, you know, lapidary specials, where if you're a lapidary and you're cutting your own stones, you know, you can you can cut your own 19 by 23 millimeter stone, you know. But if you happen to buy one somewhere and you're looking for a ring, doing, here we go, right? So these have these lovely notches that are carved all the way down that, the shoulders, all the way around the frame. Very simple but effective pattern. MTR 240, oops, with a retail price of $109.26 and a wholesale price of $70.11 is for a 17 by 23 millimeter oval cabochon cut stone. Lovely, gorgeous open framework and then down the shoulders, right? A little texture all the way around the sides of the gallery. God, I just love that big open framework stuff. And again, these don't fit me because I have freakishly big fingers. All those years of metal smithing. You can see that scars from same. MTR 283 with a retail price of $65.84 and a wholesale price of $42.24. This is for a 17 by 24 millimeter oval cabochon or cut stone. Another spiritual successor to the one we've done previously, and there's another one coming up a little bit later that's gorgeous, huge. So this is a nice open weave kind of, I don't know, it feels like a chrysanthemum to me, but could be whatever you want. Whatever flower you see is the one that it is for you. I love that. Love those big open framework ones. They're tricky to cast, but they're gorgeous. MTR 241 with a retail price of $83.01 and a wholesale price of $53.26 for a 15 by 24 millimeter oval cabochon or cut stone. You can put whatever you want in there again. Very interesting texture, almost like golly, armadillo. I don't know, it feels like something like that, right? Or just gorgeous. With little dimples and little crosshatch sections up on the top of the shoulder. Nice big wide band. MTR 261 with a retail price of $67.91 and a wholesale price of $43.58. This for a 16 by 19 millimeter oval. Again, cabochon or cut stone. You could put anything in there. Another kind of faux carved open weave things, although this one is definitely, look at all that flora, right? All those leaves, vine work. Very cool. I love that. Here's another real simple one. MTR 242 with a retail price of $91.88 and a wholesale price of $58.95. This is for a 17 by 23 millimeter oval cabochon or cut stone. Very Art Deco shoulders, right? Coming up with those scallops, I guess. Not really scallops, but notches, grooves, pillars. Love that. This one is an interesting one because we did a custom ring for a customer based on this pattern, but the cabochon was much bigger. And this, let me just go back. MTR 256 with a retail price of $85.86 and a wholesale price of $55.09. This is for 18 by 24 millimeter cab. And I think the one that she put in there was like 22 by 30. It was monstrous. It was huge. So this, obviously, you know, we had to extend this pattern quite a bit more. And it was definitely, you know, one of those rings that you wear out to a cocktail party or something, but gorgeous. And this is that same pattern that I talked about before, that you could look at it two ways, right? You can either see the circles with those four little semicircles on the inside of them, creating a diamond, you know, look, or you can see the flower, the four-petaled flower, right, that creates that, and the intersections of them make the different patterns. So Maybe that's one of those logic tests like you see on the internet. You know, do you see circles or do you see flowers when you look at this? I love that. That's definitely MC Escher-esque sort of effect. Very cool. MTR 262 with a retail price of $71.11 and a wholesale price of $49.48. This is for a 17 by 23 millimeter oval cabochon or cut stone. This has a lot of real interesting textures on it, right? So there's like little sort of like panels, you know, that come down. Some have little curlicues, you know, carved into them. And they just have alternating dashes and dots and stripes and things in every direction. It's really, really, really super interesting ring. Not going to see a lot of those around, kind of thing. I mean, that looks, you know, for all intents and purposes, like it was like, you know, hand fabricated instead of cast. You don't see a lot of castings like that. MTR 239 with a retail price of $120.53 and a wholesale price of $77.34. This is for a 17 by 24 millimeter oval cab. Look at this gorgeous beauty. Lovely curlicues, open frame work, you know, coming all the way up. Got that giant shoulder, right? So this, when it sits on your ring, and again, I have these giant fingers. I mean, that is, I can't even get that on because my fingers are too big, but that's a statement. That when you're wearing that is like, look at this ring. And if you leave the prongs this way instead of putting a stone in there, really good if you're in a fist fight. I didn't say that. You didn't hear me say that. You can't make me repeat it. MTR 267 with a retail price of $85.28 and a wholesale price of $54.72. This is for 18. I'm sorry. I find myself so funny sometimes. 18 by 24 millimeter oval cabochon or cut stone. Simple crosshatch kind of open weave with more crosshatch thing. I guess this is what definitely would be considered manly, right? All the sharp angles and square things, right? Cabochon or cut stone, you can put whatever you like in there. Everything will work. Here's one, a little bit of a departure. MTR 147 with a retail price of $85.74 and a wholesale price of $68.50. This is for a 24 millimeter square. Boy, probably a cab would work best in here. If you had a really, really low pavilion cut stone cushion cut or thing, with a really, 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 like I'm stressing, really shallow pavilion, you might be able to get it to fit in here. But this is a cabochon ring all the way, designed for. Again, these are pretty thick, but not too thick that you couldn't push them over once you get your cab in there. So get your cab in there and push those down over, and that will work. I love the shoulders, right? How the shoulders kind of, you know, the ring, it's, you know, the wide shoulders, right? But then it sort of splits and you end up with just these two little tabs. And this gives you the suggestion that the ring continues around on the inside, right? Just very cool. Very cool framework to hold that seat in there. This is another MTR 237 with a retail price of $99.40 and a wholesale price of $63.79. This is for a 19 by 26 millimeter oval cabochon or cut stone. You can put whatever you like in there. Very simple, you know, sort of carved, etched pattern in there with the little steps coming up on the outside. Very interesting, very awesome, very manly, Put on my manly voice. MTR 286 with a retail price of $63.11 and a wholesale price of $40.50. This is for a 12 by 16 millimeter oval cabochon or a cut stone. You can put anything in here. Very simple kind of. I love that these grooves, these angles that look more like. I don't know. Give it more of a angles look to it. MTR, 223 with a retail price of $60.66 and a wholesale price of $40.59. This is for a 13 by 15 millimeter oval. And again, we have another one that's similar to this. Maybe it was last week. Right, square. Very. I don't know. This feels Egyptian to me. You know, or with the right kind of faceted stone in there, right, with the hexagon and these little binding sort of things. Looks very dwarvish, Tolkien dwarvish, not Snow White dwarvish. MTR 243 with a retail price of $78.02 and a wholesale price of $50.06. Is for a 15 by 26 millimeter oval. Again, kind of not a usual oval shape. Normally our ovals are pretty standard ratio, you know, 1 to 3, 1 to 2, something like that. And this is obviously, what is that? What was that again? 15 by 26. Way longer than it is wide, you know, compared to most of our things. Right. Very cool crosshatch patterns on that with that little ribbon, you know, look on the shoulders. I love that. Here's another one that's definitely a cab, MTR 140 with a retail price of $52.33 and a wholesale price of $39.95 for a 22 by 28 millimeter oval cabochon. Yeah, you wouldn't put a cut stone in there. There's no way you could secure that in there. So a cab, you'd have to glue that in there. You might be able to push these bezel walls over onto the stone once you get it glued in there if you want to get rid of any space. They're pretty thick though, so you'd have to be really good at it to not blemish it, or be willing to get in there and grind the edges, you know, or burnish the edges to make them beautiful. Again, very cool cutaway, sort of like sun things. It looks very, I don't know, Aztec to me. Whoops. MTR 233 with a retail price of $89.42 and a wholesale price of $57.38. This is for a 15 by 16 millimeter cushion cut stone. I guess depending on, and it's, you know, 16 millimeters tall, 15 millimeters wide. Yeah. Cut stone definitely would work in here. A cab would work in here. Again, the corner prongs like this, if you're using a cushion cut that has very pointy corners, you might have to get a little tiny, like a 2 millimeter, 3 millimeter ball burr and carve little notches on the inside for the tips of the stone to fit into. Love this Art Deco shoulders on this thing, right? Terminating into a square thing, right? Almost like a traditional box ring. I love that. MTR 308 with a retail price of $69.51 and a wholesale price of $43.44. This is for a 12 by 16 millimeter oval cabochon. This has got that kind of that gallery bezel, right? So you put the stone in there and you just push those down onto there. If it's a low dome bezel, oops, one of them is bent over. Make that straight again. If it's a really low dome cab, no problem. You can get that in there and held in place just with these little gallery prongs. If it's a really high dome cab and the tops of these bezel components, right? These little, you know, tiny things. It's kind of bezel, but it's pronged, but it's, you know, it's in between. It's a hybrid, but we'll just call it a bezel. If the tops of the bezel wall doesn't extend past where the taper begins to start, you know, pushing this all day long won't make a difference. Your stone will still pop out, so you'd have to glue it in there. But again, if it's a low dome cab, and I've seen plenty that will work on this thing. I just love this antiqued. I think lots of that twisty wire effect, little granulation pieces soldered in there. Very cool effect. And a lovely, lovely ring. We've got this MTR 264 with a retail price of $95.19 and a wholesale price of $61.09. This is for a 17 by 21 millimeter oval cabochon or cut stone. Very cool. This almost looks like you know, those leather punches that people use to punch textures into you know, metal or leather. Obviously this is not done that way, but it's just kind of a cool effect. These little cutaway patterns with the textures, you know, put down on the inside, little cute little texture on the side of the shoulder. Very interesting shoulder decoration. The top of this is scalloped, right? So it's only the tops of the scallops reach the seat. Please excuse that cha-ching. That's my Etsy app on my phone. Was that somebody watching, placing an order? All right. MTR 247 with a retail price of $92.08. It can't be because there's only one person watching, according to my screen. And I think that's Nelson. MTR 247, retail price of $92.08 and a wholesale price of $59.09. This is for a 17 by 21 millimeter oval cut stone. Will fit beautifully in here with that beautiful seat. Cabochon will definitely work too. Love these gouges, right, in the metal that travel, or these channels, I guess, that gives you that sort of I don't know, would you call that a little textured effect? It's very cool. MTR 249 with a retail price of $95 and a wholesale price of $60.95. This is for a 17 by 21 millimeter oval cabochon or cut stone. Very simple, elegant shoulders, right, with a couple of interesting textures, little tabs on the front. Nice big wide shoulders. This is like classic. You cannot go wrong with this ring. There's nobody in the world that would be offended by this ring. Which I guess is a good thing if you can say this. The most inoffensive piece of jewelry I've ever seen. MTR 244 with a retail price of $81.14 and a wholesale price of $52.06. This is for a 19 by 24 millimeter oval. We've got some cool scroll work in the gallery there, and the shoulders, nice big wide shoulders with, again, that same texture with the star, with the flowers, the 4-petal flowers or circles, depending on how you're looking at it, right? I know you guys are obsessed with that now, right? So am I. I love it. Very cool. I know you're not. That's okay. Just humor me. MTR 251 with a retail price of $103.68 and a wholesale price of $66.53. This is for a 17 by 25 millimeter oval cabochon or cut stone. Chevrons, right? So love these chevrons, kind of stacked one on top of each other. They get huge and exaggerated all the way up at the top, and they create a very cool stacked pattern, right, on the shoulders. Very awesome. MTR 260 with a retail price of $87.22 and a wholesale price of $55.97. This is for 18 by 26 millimeter oval cabochon or cut stone. Either will work. You gotta love that. I don't know, very French looking fauna, right? Little flowers, little leaves, little vines. all the way up the shoulder, a cut shoulder on the other side. Now, the texture is just so good here. It almost looks antiqued. They're not. It's all shiny, but very cool. That's an amazing ring. Love it. And I think, oh no, I didn't save one. I was normally save a really fabulous one for the last one, but we'll just go out with a whimper instead of a bang. MTR 236 with a retail price of $63.18 and a wholesale price of $40.54. This is for a 13 by 15 millimeter oval cabochon or cut stone. Again, I just love how the shape of this, the shoulders, right, with these gouges in them. When you get to the top, how it creates that sort of bracketing, you know, effect, right, where it's flat on the top. Love those scallops. Very, again, this is also reminiscent to me of very dwarven architecture, but like, again, Tolkien dwarves, not Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs kind of dwarves, which those are called dwarfs instead of dwarves. Don't ask me why I know that. Not important. Okay, let me bring myself back on the camera. So that, you know what, that is all of the men's rings, men's rings, the big rings, the big chunky rings. There are some of those chunkers that I think yeah, they're just gorgeous. I love them. But they're big, and like I said at the beginning of this live stream session, almost all of these prongs, right, the prongs on these rings are going to have to be adjusted. So, you know, just because, I mean, they're made like this so that depending on the pavilion of your stone and how the stone sits in the seat, you can adjust this depending on, you know, if you need it to be the notch and you know, the prong height to be higher or lower, depending. But almost 99% of the time you'll need to adjust these prongs on these ones. I know it seems like it's like, oh, what? I have to do some work. Oh my God. But it's way more versatile. If you have a prong that is way bigger than you need it to be, you can always cut some off and grind some down and grind the thing. But if the prong is too small, you can't make that bigger unless you cut the whole thing off and just, you know, solder a new prong on there. You know, at which point, I mean, you may as well just buy a new ring, right? I think. Anyway, that's it. That's my rant for the day about prongs and rings. Next week we will start the rings with the we call them pearl rings, but they're, I mean, they're for anything that is semi-drilled. And when I say semi-drilled, I mean drilled halfway, where there's a drill hole only on one side. You see that a lot with pearls, individual pearls. Although I have seen it in gemstones. You know, if you're a lapidary and you're cutting your own stones, it's nothing to drill a hole, you know, partway through. And those settings all have, you know, a seat with a peg, and you're using a good two-part epoxy. You glue something to the outside of that. And yeah, some of those things are amazing, which I know you can't wait till next week to watch the rest, or watch some of them. A lot of those seats are not mesh seats, right? Or they're not open. They're closed domes, right, with the peg on the inside. So a lot of them you can, and I know I say this every time, but you can use a lot of those for epoxy resin, right? Just pouring epoxy resin right into them. And I've seen some really cool effects done with gluing pictures or printed patterns onto the inside of those kind of domes, and then filling it with clear epoxy to give it sort of a magnified effect, or you know, putting a bug in there and then filling it. It's just weird. People do weird things, but it's cool, very cool. And yeah, seems like no matter how you mean for something, if you design a ring or a pendant, no matter how you plan for it to be used, somebody will figure out a way to use it for something else, something you hadn't intended. And a lot of times those results are amazing, mostly because you didn't think of it, and then you think, God, I wish I had thought of that, because it's very cool. Anyway, that's it for today. Thank you for joining us. I don't know, why are you still here? If you're still here, go watch something else. We'll be back next week with more rings. Thank you for joining us. Take care of yourself, take care of the planet, take care of your mental health. You know, get vaccinated. We're getting there, you know, slowly but surely. We'll get out of this hole, and we'll be able to see you at shows again soon. Won't that be nice? When you can complain to me in person instead of over the internet. But Mark, I tried to make this work and make it work. Love to help those kind of problems. I love to help people. I love to get in there and make it, because it makes people happy. This is just such a great job, right? Because it's not like the motor vehicle department or the dentist, you know, where everybody who's there doesn't want to be there, right? We're at those kind of shows when you think everybody's so happy because everybody wants to be there and it's a fun thing and they're feeding their artistic spirit. And anyway, I've gone on way too long. Feed your artistic spirit, and we will see you back here next week. All right. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.